Welcome, traders, to Enduring Resolve, the podcast where we talk about achieving financial independence through trading. I'm your host, Luis. This is episode 9. We're going to talk about what can we trade? What can we trade as traders? So we're going to cover the products that can be traded, where we can find them, and discuss the focus of what this channel and this podcast is all about. So I don't trade all that's available to trade. So we're going to talk more on what it is that we do. So the basic products, everybody's familiar with stocks. Now, everybody's familiar with stocks. That is the most popular product available for traders. It requires a huge account for the most part. Like I said, it requires a huge account. There are day trading rules about how big your account size needs to be to do more than 5 trades a week. That is $25,000. The last I checked on the SEC website. Now, stocks come in different flavors. We're not going to delve into the details of all the products that I'm about to mention, but at least to kind of talk on these things is, stocks come in either common or preferred. We as traders don't care. The difference being there's a lot of details as to the difference, but the big difference is a common stock allows us to vote for the officers of the board, and preferred stock gives us preference in getting dividends as they're paid out. We're traders. We shouldn't receive dividends. We're not in the trade long enough. So if those are options for you when you're doing your trading with stocks, I would reach out to your broker because you're probably not in a trading account. But stocks, for those that are not familiar, stocks are you own shares of a company. You have an ownership stake in a company. You're a shareholder. So that's where stocks came from. That's what they are. With all these products that we're going to mention, we're looking to make money as the price action goes either up or down. Stocks are very simple to get into. They're very easy to understand because we're exposed so much to them. You go on CNBC, you go on any other news network, Bloomberg, it doesn't matter. They're talking stocks. Personally, I don't touch stocks. I've never owned stock, or a stock, I should say. I've owned stocks indirectly by way of mutual funds. Stocks is not something I trade, just by virtue of account size, and it's just not my thing. What is my thing are futures. So futures started off as commodities, meaning only including the commodities. That's the ags and the softs. Those are the big things like wheat, corn, hogs, cattle, all the things that we need to live, copper, oil, gold. Those are the commodities. Then futures, what we transact are contracts. So you never actually buy or sell a future. You get margin taken out of your account for the course of a transaction. If the value of that contract goes up and you're long and you sell that contract, you make money. If contra to that, if you are short and the price goes down, you make money. The opposite of those things happen, you lose money. But futures is the first of what we're discussing here that is actually a leveraged account, meaning that there is a certain amount of leverage being placed on that contract. You never own the contract when you're transacting, except if you hold that contract till expiration. Then that's not something you want to do. Depending on what your broker is, you have to undergo some process there, and then you may be purchasing the full contract, but you don't want to end up in that position because you're usually allowed to trade a futures contract with a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 as margin. But if you were to be in a position where you had to pay for that contract, it may be hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. So you just have to be careful with that. It's not something you want to toy with. Be sure you're educated. But futures and it's the things I mentioned are the things that are available to trade. Within the futures market, there's also equities. So the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, the Russell, and the Dow are also available to be traded in futures. So it's a lot of opportunity for futures, and it's an exciting market to be a part of. Next are options. We're not going to delve in too much into this in this podcast. We're actually going to give that its due and its own podcast and its own attention, mostly because most people are not exposed to options, so they can be very difficult for the layman to kind of wrap their minds around. It's something that requires a lot of exposure and training to, only because it's something that's different. So with options, you have calls and puts, and we'll kind of leave it at that. So there's an entire market on just options and how options work. And I guess full disclosure for me, or just tell you about me, if you've heard my previous podcast, my strategy right now is I use futures for income and for growing my account, and options. I'm currently in sim mode. The end state for me is to be an options trader. The flexibility that options provide to manage risk and to make money and to build wealth far exceeds everything else. But because of that, it's also more complex to wrap your head around. But keep posting, and you'll see me make that transition from being a futures trader to an options trader here over the next couple of months and years. Lastly is Forex. These, is one of the basic products that I'd say these are the big four: stocks, futures, options, and Forex. I am not a Forex trader. Not something that I'm looking to get into anytime soon. I may surprise myself and find myself in Forex. But that is trading currencies or currency pairs. So the euro versus the dollar versus the euro, and just catching those price movements between the two markets. So those are the big four. Now, there are more elaborate products out there that you can trade. Those include Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. I don't touch those, not really my thing. The big thing with that is there hasn't been a reputable, solid, dependable exchange that have taken on cryptocurrencies. Rumor is that the CME, that's the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, it's the biggest exchange that handles futures. They did have cryptocurrencies on their exchange, and for whatever reason, there was some hoop-de-doo that happened. They got dropped. So until that market doesn't establish itself on a reputable exchange that isn't getting hacked, that isn't getting attacked, then it's not something that's going to attract my attention. I know there's people like, oh, there's a lot of money to be made. Well, there's a lot of money to be made in all the other ones too, without the risk. So that's that. You can also trade forwards. That is a little different than a future. That is not something that's as readily available to most traders, unless you really go down that path. And lastly, you have things like the weather. That I don't touch, but that's as crazy as you can get as to what can be traded. Anything can be traded. I mean, there are REITs out there. REITs are real estate investment trusts. You can trade those. I mean, if it has any type of value and someone determined how to put that on an exchange, it can be traded. And there's probably somebody trading it out there. The volume may be ridiculously low, but you can trade it, right? And you've learned it, get in there and just do it. So how do you learn about any of this stuff? So for stocks, I mean, we talked about learning strategies in a couple of the previous episodes. If you want to find those, you can check on your podcast app or go on our website, www.enduringresolve.com. Be sure to subscribe so we get fed with all the podcast videos and blog posts that we put up there. Just keep posting on everything that we're doing. But you can learn about all these products and where to learn about these products by way of those podcasts. What I recommend for you right now for stocks Good place to start cutting your teeth is Investopedia. That's Investopedia. They're not sponsoring this podcast. It is it's a play off of Wikipedia. That's what, at least that's the way I describe it. Unlike Wikipedia, though, which is, I guess, a not-for-profit, Investopedia is very much for-profit. So they have products that they're selling there. What I like about them is they do have a lot of great articles to describe all these things. And until our website is up to match theirs, then that is the best place for right now that I recommend just learning about stocks and the world of trading within stocks. For futures, go straight to the source. The best place to learn about the different contracts, the different functionalities of futures. We'll eventually have podcasts and videos on these, but to get your feet wet and just check out the CME group. That's the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Group. They are the exchange that handle almost all the popular futures products. That's the S&P 500 futures, the NASDAQ futures, the ones that I mentioned earlier. Those are being traded through Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Now, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange has grown significantly over the past several years because some of the products were being traded in other exchanges have been purchased by the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. One of those being NYMEX, which is the New York Mercantile Exchange, is now owned by the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Along with that, CBOT, which is the Chicago Board of Trade. All this stuff will make sense to you if you go to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange website. But each one of these exchanges has products within it that are available for trade. And the way you trade them is not through the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, but rather through your broker. So whatever brokerage account you have, you would get a subscription to the data for each of the exchanges that you wanted data from in order to be able to trade that product. So, but before, so your broker would be a natural good choice as well, but I've seen brokers be hit or miss. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange has an interest in you learning about the different products because they want you to be able to trade the products, and that's how they make money. So they have an entire little curriculum there, tutorials. Go ahead and take a look at those up until when we have those on our website as well. That's a great resource for you to go and just learn about the futures market. To learn about the options market, the best place I've found has been the OCC, or the Options Clearinghouse. They're the clearinghouse that take care of all options orders, make sure that there's liquidity in the options market, but they are also a great resource to just learn about options and different option strategies. Now, unlike the episodes that we've done previously here about strategies, the strategies that the OCC is sharing aren't trading strategies for you to immediately employ. It's more things that you can do with options. That's the best I can describe them. So it'll make sense when you go on their website and see what they have. We'll link to all these websites on our website, www.enduringresolve.com, so that you can navigate over there. But they being OCC, have many resources to just learn about options and what they are. A little history on them. Options are actually a relatively new product. They started in the early 70s. All that were available initially were just calls. By 76, I believe, is when we had puts. And options volume has exploded more in the last 20, 30 years, meaning in the 90s and the early 2000s, than any other time. So there was more availability as the decades went on, but it didn't really catch on until the late 90s or this millennia. So very new product from that standpoint compared to futures. The first futures contract was written in something like 200 BC. Stocks have been around since companies have been a thing. Options have not. The options are relatively new. So that, again, another reason why I say that I'm going to dedicate an entire episode just to options, because they are their own monstrosity. Lastly, for Forex, there seems to not be a shortage of where to go to find education on Forex. It's, believe it or not, very, very popular product to trade. Not so much in the United States, though there is a strong community within the United States that does do it. The scale to which it's done is much larger outside the United States than within it. To kind of put it all in perspective, something like $5 trillion are exchanged every single day in the Forex markets. Now, when you factor in that the United States has the largest economy in the world, and our economy is 14 trillion per year, you're talking every 3 days, the entire U.S. economy goes through the Forex market. That's how big the Forex market is. So because of that, there are a lot of great resources out there. Oanda is Oanda, O-A-N-D-A, is a brokerage that I found had quite a bit of quality information. Investopedia is another quality resource to kind of refer to for Forex information. So take a look at those things. Again, go back to our site, www.enduringresolve.com. Subscribe to our page. Keep posted as to anytime we publish a podcast, a video, or put on a blog post. Anything that's going on in our community, best place to find it is on there. If you want to send me a message or communicate with me, best place is go to Twitter. You can find me at the handle @EnduringResolve. So thank you so very much for tuning in today. It's been a pleasure serving you. Our next episode is trading rewarding? Oh, that's a good one. So I've been doing this now for a couple years. Have I found it rewarding? Well, you're going to have to tune into the next episode to find the answer to that. Thanks so much. Hope you're having a fabulous year. Until next time, keep it green.